After playing 12 minutes, I'm ecstatic about the fact that click and point adventures are making a comeback. And we'll get to 12 minutes in a second, which is a fantastic game, by the way, but I just want to shine and get giddy about the fact that click and point adventures are accessible and practically in the mainstream again. I'm so excited, especially about the fact that I just came off of The Fall, which was click and point E, and then I played 12 minutes, and soon I'll be going into The Fall 2, and I'm just enjoying my time with click and point adventures again. The slow burn, unraveling the mystery, and the fact of the matter is a click and point adventure is 90% story. It's not really gameplay. You point and you click. I mean, there's nothing else to it. So it really relies on having a good story and being unique with it. And 12 minutes is so unique with it. So we should probably get to that. Welcome to Indecent. My name is Vincent and I'm here to take a look at some movies and games, both old and new, to help you find what could be your next favorite indie project. So, if you have a heart for passion projects and low-budget masterpieces, please consider subscribing to my channel on our quest to find the ultimate independent production. But without wasting any more time, let's dive right into my personal thoughts and feelings on 12 Minutes. 12 Minutes is an adventure game developed by Louis Antonio and published by Annapurna Interactive. The game takes place almost exclusively in a small apartment suite and requires the player to repeatedly play through events of a 12-minute cycle, Groundhog Day style, to try to solve a dark and twisted murder mystery. I totally have to make sure this review's 12 minutes long, right? Yeah, okay, cool. So I'm quickly going to explain to you how things work here. So first we're going to do a spoiler-free talk where we discuss this game in a completely safe environment for the uninitiated who haven't yet played this game, and that'll be indicated by this graphic. Then we're going to move over into spoiler talk, discussing endings and twists and character arcs in a way that would only be appropriate for someone who's actually played this game, and that will be displayed by this graphic. But without wasting any more time, let's actually talk about the game. And I'm going to start the spoiler-free talk by discussing my general thoughts. And I can say right off the bat that I genuinely enjoyed this game and I thought it was fantastic, unique and intriguing. And the fact that it did something that I've never seen before just lifted it that much more, because the premise of the game is exactly what makes it so unique. It's the fact that you've got potentially 12 minutes, a 12-minute cycle to constantly try and figure out this murder mystery that's set up right from the first cycle. And I love that, and I love how they handle the Groundhog Day elements. The fact that you feel trapped but not lost, although you feel lost when the story requires you to, and it's just done brilliantly. And I just love the passion that's put into this game, and that it genuinely is story first and foremost. In fact, it's all story. You're just along for the ride, although you do still click and you point in the way that one does in a point-and-click adventure, which is really awesome, as I've already said. As the game's description says, you are limited to your apartment space. That's where the game takes place for the most part. And I mean, you spend most of the time of this playthrough. Now, they say this game could take up to 8 hours. Personally, I spent between 3 and 4 hours to play this game, getting to the proper ending, the most indie ending of the game. So I think that 8 hours is a bit of a stretch of the imagination, although I'm happy because I wouldn't have wanted to spend 8 hours in this claustrophobic space. But the 4 hours that I did spend there were perfectly designed, and I never felt tired of the space that I was in, because from the first moment that you play this game, everything's accessible to you. Everything, every object is there. And I love the fact that in my first playthrough, I literally picked up everything in the first 12 minutes. I'm like, oh, there's a spoon, I can pick up a spoon. At the end of the day, I had an inventory full of candles and plants and pudding. Yes, I had pudding in my pocket, but the less we say about that, the better. And I just found, like, you know, I immediately went into click and point adventure style. I was like, pick up everything you can, because at some point down the line, you're going to be able to use this stuff. But then 12 minutes in, the day resets, your inventory is empty, and you realize, okay, cool. You don't collect everything and hope one day you're going to use it. You use it for those 12 minutes, and it immediately makes you approach this game in a completely different manner that I really love. So, point being, they use their space and their objects, and the fact that it repeats, they do it brilliantly in a way that doesn't ever make you feel fatigued. Yes, there comes points where you feel a bit lost, confused, and not sure what to do next, but you never feel, oh, I can't do this anymore. And that's a feat, because going into this game knowing that it's not just a literal 12-minute game, I thought I would get tired pretty quick being in the same space, constantly doing the same things for 4 hours, but I didn't feel that. And that's a great win to the developers. I'm just thinking about it. Is 12 minutes a roguelike? I mean, you always start from the beginning with nothing new except information. Is 12 minutes is a roguelike. Anyway, what's really cool about this game is, as well, is once you've done a loop or two and you understand the premise of the game, you immediately have a million things that you want to do at once. And that is why it is extremely important to take notes. Now, I was playing this game with my wife, who was second-hand playing or backseat playing, whatever you want to call it, checking, and we were thinking about all these things like, ooh, try this, try that. There's a million things we want to do at once. And that's why it really helped to write them all down so that we can work down a list, because you're going to have so many thoughts that the important ones are going to slip through the cracks, because some things that require the story to progress are actually small things, and not in a stupid way, in a logical and fair way, but you're going to want to make sure that you do everything that you think of, so take notes. Now, as you progress through the story, there are things that really suck and like hurt to watch, and not like suck in a bittersweet, like, holy shit, awesome story way. And even though you know the day's gonna reset and you can do anything and get away with it, there were some things that I literally couldn't bring myself to do, even though I knew the day was going to reset. And that's proving how awesome they made this game, because they really make you feel for these characters. But there are a few negatives of this game that I didn't love as much. Well, actually, there's one more positive that I'll add before we get there. It's the camera angle. I really loved the top-down view, and I remember the first night where I played through about half the game. As I got up from my chair, it was like I was seeing my own life in my apartment from a top-down perspective, thinking about, okay, cool, open the door, It was such a weird experience. So they really had me invested and enveloped into this game. But now, onto the less cool things, or a bit of a fail. Now, I found it interesting in the opening credits of the game that there were motion capture credits. And I was like, that's interesting, motion capture. It seems unnecessary for a game like this. It's weird because when you play the game, it doesn't look like motion capture was used, because if I'm honest, the animations of this game are very clunky and they could have been done way better, especially considering the fact that they say motion capture was involved. I would never have thought it looks like motion capture, because it all looks very keyframed. And I mean, the way animations are cancelled in certain places, and in certain cases there's big glitches where, for instance, you would do a thing over here and it's happening to the character over there. So let's say you shake a person's hand here, you see them over there shaking their hands. It was like, I feel like Sims level animations, which I feel they could have done better, especially if you're going to credit motion capture. So I don't know what was happening with that. And then the last negative that I would comment about this game before we go into spoiler talk is the fact that I feel like sometimes you don't really know what the goal is of moving forward. And I guess that wouldn't bother some people, but I just felt in some places I was like, okay, but what do you want from me? I mean, I did the thing I thought I'm supposed to do, but now what? And then I had to like waste a few loops just doing random shit. I'm like, oh, there's a new part to this mystery that I haven't uncovered. But that's fine. I guess it's not a big deal. It just bothered me at times. And there really is so many layers to this mystery. You constantly think, yes, I finished it. I did the thing they wanted. And like, oh no, there's a whole thing. There's a whole thing. There's layers. 12 minutes is like an onion. Onions have layers. 12 minutes have layers. Okay? But I think that's where we move over into spoiler talk. So if you haven't played this game, please go do that and then return. This game has the freaking most bonkers, heartbreaking twist ever. Yes, the husband is the brother of the wife. You heard me right. The twist is incest, and it's crazy. And I love the fact that they went that dark. And it was like, when I saw it, I was like, no, just stop. And the line that Willem Dafoe's character says, where he's like, you married your sister? I mean, I felt that. It was heartbreaking. And it's one of those things where it's one of those rare things where it's like, there's no happy ending. The moment you find that out, there's like, okay, cool. You can't truly have a happy ending, especially because the brother and sister have a child. It's so wrong, but I love when movies and games go there, you know, like aren't scared to give you these dark and unfixable resolutions. And I really love that. And I really love all the layers to this game and the fact that there's so much to do. I mean, at first you're like, okay, cool, I have to stop my wife from getting murdered. And you do that and like, wait, what? Then you have to figure out, oh, okay, cool, why does this fake cop want to kill her? And it layers and layers. And there's one very interesting thing that happens that's got me questioning things is, why is Willem Dafoe's character as the cop and the father that you see in the flashback, they're both voiced by Willem Dafoe? And it makes me, and there's a few lines that the father gives which makes me question if this whole game happened at all, or if it's just the husband's way of coping, of finally coming to terms with what is true, or with what is the reality of the situation. And I think there's a lot left to you to figure out, and I really love that about this game, and I'm still trying to figure out. I still don't have answers to this. So there's a lot of layers, and what I will say is, if you think you finished this game by the credits coming out, go back. The first time the credits rolled for me is when you're in that flashback with your father and you choose that you don't want to let her go, or something like that, and then the game's credits come up, and you're like, okay. So then I click continue. Well, actually, I freaking read in a walkthrough that, oh, you're supposed to click continue, and there was a second part to it. I did feel like the ending was a bit blunt. They could have cinematicified it a little, but for the most part, I love the story that this game tells. It's a little rough around the edges in terms of animation and blunt endings and stuff, but in general, it's a beautiful story, one that I could see as an indie film, and I would love it either way, and I enjoyed the adventure it took me on. So 12 minutes is a must play for anyone who loves story-driven games. But that's it from me, Vincent from Indecent, and I'd love to see you on the next one, which will be a movie that, spoiler alert, I hated. So see you there, because we have to hate this shit together. Okay, so this is just the part where I look around waiting to build some time to make sure that this review is 12 minutes long, because the game is called 12 minutes, so the review has to be 12 minutes. So let's just wait. You don't actually have to watch this. It's just for